Hey everybody, Claire Laughlin here, and I want to talk about building a learning culture. In a learning culture, people feel free to contribute fully and take some risks, but they also need to be held accountable, right? So I want to just review with you this quick chart from Amy Edmondson's book, Teaming. Okay, and she talks about how in a learning environment, up here in the learning zone, that's created when our environment is high in psychological safety and high in accountability both, okay? So what that means is people feel safe to be themselves and to contribute and show up fully and speak their minds, even if their opinions are a little bit controversial. And they therefore are invested in your culture, and that's really, really important. But also, you can have that, but in an environment where accountability is really low, it's really comfortable and everybody feels really good, but people aren't holding themselves to a standard. And that's not what you want, right? So what we want is where psychological safety is high, people feel safe and good, but they also have accountability. They know what the standards are, they perform to the standards, and if they're not performing to the standards, there's some accountability and there's some consequence for that, right? So again, what we don't want where accountability is super high and psychological safety is low, so people don't feel safe, but they're always being held accountable. That creates a lot of anxiety. And we also don't want this apathy zone where people aren't safe and there's no real accountability or no positive accountability. That's a really bad place to be as well. So we're going to focus here on the learning zone. And I want to give you one powerful tool that's going to really help you bring people in to this sense of accountability. Because I think that most leaders struggle with the accountability part a little bit more than they struggle with the safety part, okay? So let's focus on how we can draw our team members into accountability in a really positive way that helps them create their own kind of safety. Okay, so I'm gonna flip the page here and I want to go over a tool with you called Learning Loops. Hang on one second. Okay, we're back. So Learning Loops. Learning Loops is a tool that I kind of developed this, and the idea is to bring your team together and to talk about what creates measures of success for your team. So if you imagine okay, you're going to bring your team together and you're going to start a new project, and this project is about let's say your project is about taking data from your old system and importing it into a new system that you just got started with. Okay, so this is a big job and it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take several weeks and everyone's going to have to do their part. So what I want you to do is, instead of telling people, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable for your accuracy and your timeline and etc., I want you to bring people together in a room and ask them this key question. Say, okay, folks, in order for us to be and feel really successful with this project, how will we measure that? How will we know if we're being successful here? And then wait and ask and let them comment, okay? Let them tell you what they think. Now, if they don't have anything, you might have to seed that discussion just a little bit, but let's say they come up with these. So, hey, we'll know we're successful if we stick to our timeline. That's how we'll know we're successful. Like, we've built this beautiful timeline. If we stick to it, we'll be successful. We'll be successful if everyone does their share. If we all contribute and we do what we said we were going to do, that'll help us be successful. We'll be successful if we have 100% accuracy. I would go for 100%. Maybe you want to say 90% or something like that. But anyway, you say there's an accuracy measure here that helps us know whether we're being successful. And then I always like to prompt people to say, how will we know as a team if we're being successful? And in this case, let's say that someone at the table says, hey, well, we'll know as a team that we're successful if we help each other. So you basically create a chart that looks like this, okay? It's got your measures of success down one side. It's got a plus column, a delta column, and sometimes I even put a little score column, okay? So then what you do is, a week later or a week into the project, not at the very end, but partway in between, you bring the team back together to evaluate how well it's going. You learn together, okay? So you say, okay, folks, these were our measures of success. We knew that we would feel successful if we were on time, we did our share, we got 100% accuracy, and we helped each other. So let's talk about this. What worked well in this past week for each of these measures? And what should we change moving forward? We could also say, hey, let's give ourselves a score. How would you score us? Let's get an average score for each of these. So you got 5 people at the table and they're all, I give us a 7, I give us an 8, I give us a 9, something like that. So you can create a little average score here and you can track your scores week to week. So that's kind of fun too. But let's say that in this piece, somebody at the table says, well, I failed at my timeline and I failed at doing my share this week. I wasn't able to do it because I got that other request from the other department and I had to perform for them. And so I never got around to doing my data entry. So here you are a week in and somebody's already kind of dropped the ball on their part of the project. But as the leader, you don't have to stand there and be like, what happened? Why didn't you do this, right? Because everyone's at the table and the person steps up and they're holding themselves accountable and they say, like, I wasn't able to stick to the timeline. I wasn't able to do my share. So you say, okay, so what can we change next time about that? Maybe our timeline needs to be adjusted slightly to allow for things like that. Maybe we need to set better boundaries with other departments. Maybe we need to ask for help from each other so that we can stick to our timeline. But you let the group try to come up with how they're going to address the problem. So in a sense, you are holding accountability, but you're truly letting the group hold accountability for themselves. They're going to determine what makes them successful. Of course, you can add things to that, but if you let most of it come from them, then they're invested in what's going to make them successful. And then you just simply facilitate a discussion about what's working and what should be changing, what should we change moving forward. And then, like I said, you can do this score thing, which is fun to compare week to week and try to hit a high score. You can even build in some celebration. Say like, okay, when we get a high score, some week that we get a high score, we're gonna order in for lunch or something like that, okay? So anyway, this is the concept of learning loops. It's a great way of engaging your team, helping them with a high level of accountability and getting them super invested. As always, leave me a comment below. I always appreciate hearing from you. I'd love to hear your comments and your questions, and I'm sure that the other leaders appreciate it too. Tell me if you can use this. Tell me when you're using it, how you're using it, or if you have questions. Make it a great day.